The group had been travelling for several days at a steady pace. At Ero's behest, Ivan had agreed to search for a rumoured magical sword to the southeast. On the third day, they made their camp in the protection of the grassy glade. Tomorrow they would travel across the open plains. The hour of night, where the void of blackness was at its deepest, was known as the witching hour. The crescent slither of the moon hung in the sky like death. A brethren of stars glittered in its wake. Under the dimming light of the moon rays, a fire hissed and crackled in its pit. The fire was situated at the centre of the clearing, where the misfits circled it. There was a loud pop and crack as the jaws of flame claimed another victim. The Goliath sat on a tree trunk, chewing noisily on a chicken bone, puncturing through the brooding silence. Ivan poked the charcoal wood at the base of the fire. The fire flared with renewed intensity in response. The sorcerer fixated Loki with a stare.
Odinson, where does the goblin hail from?
I know not where. Ask him.
Fine. Gunther, where do you hail from?
The goblin's eyes flitted to Ivan's face before they settled on his wart-riddled hands. Finally, he poked a finger southwest. Ivan followed the direction of the goblin's finger, as fat and green as a caterpillar, before it intertwined with the rest, clasped and cocooned in the folds of his black cloak. The goblin stared at his interlocked fingers as if contemplating their ghastly appearance, bloated bugs that would never bloom into butterflies.
I was living in a keep of Usyk. It was abandoned. They banished me for theft. I stole something shiny.
White lifted his chin so that his eyes were barely perceptible under the shadows of his hood, illuminated by the neon glow of the embers.
Not only a vulgar mockery of humans, but a thief too, just as I said.
At the ranger's words, Gunther recoiled, cowering within the excessive folds of his cloth. But he didn't respond. Loki's eyes pierced into the ranger's, the half-elf's eyes a shock of blue, framed by the steeliness of his furrowed brow.
How many times, Ranger? Leave him be, or deal with me. It would be of small consequence to deal with you, elf. I care not. I will fetch more wood for the fire, he said, disappearing into the shadows. Pay him no mind. I will keep you safe, Gunther. Ivan stroked his chin, regarding the unlikely pair, the goblin and the mysterious half-elf.
And what of you, Loki? What is your story?
Never mind my story. I'm here for coin, nothing else.
His gaze dragged across his person, resting momentarily on the dagger sheathed at his hip before settling on the flames.
Suit yourself. Get some rest, everyone. For tomorrow, we make for the plains.
They awoke at the bequest of the morning rays and soon began their journey anew, warmed by the sun's encouragement. Big P went off in search of food. The Goliath traipsed over the ever-growing greener grass with impervious disregard, his mighty axe lounging on his shoulder. Ero watched his friend go before gazing upwards into the sky, where an eagle and raven circled in consort amongst the clouds, their silhouettes shadowed by the sun. The party made good time, encountering no fiends, enemies, or any other dangers that threatened the land. After a time, they passed a curious field of mushrooms. Their spores rose into the air in lazy purple plumes, drifting into the sky. Alongside the sprouting mushrooms was a wayward, capsized cart. Even from a distance, it was clear the cart had been picked clean of all goods. The group had been travelling for several hours when White spotted a ruined structure in the distance and called a halt to the party. The ruins slept on the sloping plains, ancient remains stubbornly sticking to the yellowing grass that surrounded it. Outside the stony teeth, the grass grew green and plentiful, but within its maw, it withered and died. A trapdoor peeked between tufts of grass and surrounding weeds that strangled the blackened wood.
I say the goblin investigates.
Gunther flinched at the suggestion, hiding beneath the folds of Loki's robes. The wizard's eyes darkened.
Yeah, I reckon the goblin should go first as well, chimed in Ero.
Me too!
Fine. Fuck off. He will go, and I shall accompany him.
Loki strode towards the structure, drawing his sword as he went. The goblin appeared childlike as he hurried after him, taking 2 steps to every one of the Bladesinger's long strides. Graffiti was scrawled over the crumbling pillars in various languages, all conveying the same message. Stay away. Danger beneath. The duo approached the trap door with caution. Upon inspection, they discovered it was locked. Loki nodded to the goblin, and Gunther withdrew a cloth pouch, retrieving a set of lockpicks. The goblin bent to work while the wizard stood guard. The sun started to wane, travelling west in the sky until it became lost in the clouds. Finally, with a click of consent, the trapdoor swung inwards, squealing shrilly on its rusty hinges. After several minutes of arguing about who would go down first, the party descended down the narrow steps. Big P led the way downwards, brandishing a burning torch. Around him, several spheres of dim light orbited him, illuminating the way. The adventurers reached the bottom of the staircase, where a long corridor stretched into the distance. At the end of the corridor, a door loomed. Gingerly, they made their way towards the door. The rot of mildewed wood and musk filled the air. They disturbed dormant dust as they walked. The unsettled dust rose in a cloud, forcing them to breathe in its cloying fumes. The adventurers convened in the front of the door. The door appeared ancient, its rotting planks cracked and scarred with the passaging of time. On the surface, glowing glyphs emitted a soft translucent glow.
Does anybody speak this language?
Inquired Ivan.
After a confused bustling where everybody tried to examine them at once, it became clear that the glyphs were archaic in origin. A language was etched onto the rotting wood that none of them were acquainted with.
Here, lads. I reckon I can translate these runes, just give us a mo. Oi, Pete. Shall I torch over here for a second as I read? Careful! You'll burn it! These pages are sacred.
The Dragonborn flicked through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Aero cleared his throat before speaking the words on the page, his magically enhanced tongue lending the shape to the forgotten words.
Stylantano voi actidere fanculo.
What is it? What does it say?
Nah, nothing good. Seems to be an ancient fortress from the Forgotten War. It warns those who are of Fey or... oh, bollocks, elven blood to stay away.
Loki shifted uncomfortably. What about half-elven?
Nah, mate, it don't specify. I share your trepidation, though.
You're a dragon, not an elf.
Yeah, say what you will, mate, but in my heart, I'm elven. Cursed I may be, but I do not doubt that whatever ancient magic lives in those halls, they will detect my heart as one of purity.
Big P laughed before bending down to pick up Aero's tail.
What of this then? Funny looking elf.
Aero's tail slipped out of the Goliath's hands and hovered for a moment before whipping across the barbarian's face.
Oh! You don't want to make me mad, Aero.
Then keep your hands to yourself, then.
Elf or no elf, there might be a magical artifact inside. We must investigate. Gunther, open that door.
Gunther looked at Loki questionably. The wizard replied with the smallest of nods. The goblin withdrew his tools again and bent to work. The disgruntled party waited in the cramped hallway, becoming more irritable by every passing minute. The Goliath was bent over double. Likewise, Aero had cause to duck his head. There was a collective sigh of relief as the goblin squeaked excitedly. The door sprang open into another long corridor, ending with another closed door, framed by the familiar eerie blue light.
Fuck it,
declared Big P, striding forward. The group waited with bated breath. The Goliath reached the door and burst into laughter, breaking out into a lumbering jig.
Nothing to worry about. Come on, goblin.
One by one, the party made their way over. The last across were Loki and Aero.
Well, off you go then. Why should I go? Because if you don't, I'll throw you down the hallway myself.
Fair enough.
Glory be to Odin!
With a loud cry, Loki readied himself. Bending low, he pushed off his back foot and sprinted for the door. The wizard made it halfway, to the sound of enthusiastic cheering and whooping from Big P, before a silent blow struck him. A concussion blast of force tore into the wizard's side, slamming Loki off his feet, flinging him into the opposite wall where he collapsed into a wheezing pile on the floor. Lux rushed to help him to his feet, but Loki snatched his arm back.
It's nothing. I'm fine. Well, I think I better try an unorthodox method then.
Oh, and what would that be?
There was a popping noise as Aero vanished, reappearing outside the door and causing Ivan to jump as he let out a drawn-out squeal.
Oh, calm down, you silly tart.
I was surprised, was all. Next time, it would be polite to warn someone when you're going to teleport behind them. Well, what do the runes say?
Yeah, give us a moment.
Aero considered the runes. Loki limped over to the group warily, his eyes darting to the walls as if he expected another bolt of force at any second.
Right. They translate roughly to something along the lines of: the first lives at his home in stone, to keep the evil at bay. The second is a defence against the Fae. Thirdly, sleeps the light of day.
Treasure is inside. The light of day, an ancient elvish term meaning gold and sapphires. We must haste forward, gentlemen.
Is it worth risking the lives of the elvish among us? Said Otis.
Whatever is inside, it is no match for us. I am the leader. I say we must go inside. Glory awaits. Gunther, open that door.
Aero and Loki exchanged a long look before Loki spoke. As you wish. As long as I get paid, Gunther, do as he wishes. The goblin proved his worth yet again, skillfully working the lock, and before long the door sprung open. Gunther stepped back with a toothy smile. The adventurers spilled into the room. It was large and spacious, with a cavernous ceiling that stretched high into the rock itself. In the centre of the room were 3 large structures, depicting a pair of towering warriors, sporting shield and sword set in stone. Black stone. Its surface reflected their light sources, as if it was crafted from obsidian. Behind the towering statues were 2 doors, embedded into the stone wall at each corner.
I sense magical energy from inside those statues. Bollocks.
Yes, evidently. Well, perhaps we could go around.
Fuck this. Are you ready to go, big man? Big P broke out into a smile, his eyes alight with the prospect of combat.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm gonna smash some fucking skulls in. Oh, come on then.